Tyler had always been a bit of a bully. He loved to mock and belittle those around him, making himself feel superior. He would often make fun of people's clothes, their cars, and even their families. One day, while driving home from work, Tyler saw an elderly woman struggling to change her tire. Instead of stopping to help, he laughed and drove by, yelling insults out the window. "Hey, Grandma! You can't even change a tire! What's wrong? Can't afford a man to do it for you?" Tyler shouted, laughing at his own cruel joke. The elderly woman looked up, her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head and muttered to herself, "Lord have mercy on that young man." But little did Tyler know the universe had other plans. As he continued driving, his car suddenly sputtered and died. He coasted to the side of the road, only to realize that he was stranded in the middle of nowhere. And then, the unthinkable happened. The elderly woman whose tire he had refused to change pulled up behind him in her car. With a sly smile, she got out and began to change Tyler's tire. But just as she finished, she accidentally loosened the lug nuts on his wheel. Tyler watched in horror as his wheel rolled off down the highway. The elderly woman turned to him and said, "I guess this is what they mean by what goes around comes around." Tyler was left stranded, forced to walk miles to the nearest town. As he trudged along, he couldn't help but think about how he had treated the elderly woman. He began to feel a pang of guilt and regret. Why had he been so cruel to her? What had she ever done to him? Tyler was left stranded, forced to walk miles to the nearest town. As he trudged along, he couldn't help but think about how he had treated the elderly woman. He began to feel a pang of guilt and regret. Why had he been so cruel to her? What had she ever done to him? As he walked, the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the landscape. Tyler felt a sense of peace wash over him, and he began to realize that he had been given a rare gift, the chance to learn from his mistakes. But just as he was starting to feel a sense of redemption, disaster struck again. Tyler's phone rang, and he answered it to hear his boss's voice on the other end. "Tyler, I'm afraid I have some bad news. The company is downsizing, and your position has been eliminated." Tyler's jaw dropped. He had been so sure that he was safe, that he was one of the top performers at the company. But as he stood there, listening to his boss's words, he couldn't help but think that this was just another example of karma coming back to haunt him. He had treated others poorly, and now he was facing the consequences. As he walked the rest of the way to town, Tyler couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the universe had in store for him. Had the karma gone too far? Only time would tell. Over the next few weeks, Tyler faced one challenge after another. His car was repossessed, his apartment was burglarized, and he even got into a fight with a stranger at a bar. It seemed like the universe was conspiring against him, determined to teach him a lesson. But as the days turned into weeks, Tyler began to realize that he was being given a rare gift, the chance to start over, to rebuild his life from the ground up. He began to volunteer at a local soup kitchen where he met people who were struggling to get by. He listened to their stories, and he began to realize that he wasn't alone in his struggles. As he worked at the soup kitchen, Tyler began to feel a sense of purpose that he had never felt before. He was making a difference in people's lives, and that felt amazing. And then, one day, something unexpected happened. The elderly woman whose tire he had refused to change walked into the soup kitchen, looked at Tyler, and for a moment, they just stared at each other. Then, she smiled and said, "I see you're doing some good in the world." "That's wonderful." Tyler felt a surge of emotion, and he began to apologize for his behavior. But the elderly woman just waved her hand and said, "No need to apologize. Child, we've all been there. The important thing is that you're trying to make a change." As Tyler watched her walk away, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He realized that the karma had been hard on him, but it had also given him a rare gift, the chance to start over, to become a better person. And as he returned to his work at the soup kitchen, Tyler knew that he would never forget the lessons he had learned. He had been given a second chance, and he was determined to make the most.